Well, it's good to be with you guys today. And I'm a scientist by training. Uh, and I have a hypothesis for you that leadership habits are life changing. All right. And I don't know about you, but over the past few years, if you ever had a doubt that this topic today was important, the past few years have kind of confirmed it, right? There's been so much change and uncertainty. And there's one thing for certain is that things continue to change and evolve, that our world is constantly evolving and changing. So, how do we lead through uncertainty? There's normal uncertainty, right, in the business. That's that we expect. But how do we lead through this unprecedented time where inflections, disruptions, recessions, and other factors all kind of converge? And that's what I want you to ponder today. There is a handout for you on the tables to try to. I find that if you get bored, it's a great place to take notes or doodle or write down what you need to do. And then it also has kind of some of the information I'll be covering today for you. So leading through uncertainty. I don't know about you, but there's one thing for certain: no one knows the future, and that's scriptural, right? We know that no one knows the future. And if you may be like me, you may have been thinking or saying more often lately, I never saw that coming, right? I don't know about you, but I didn't see the pandemic coming and COVID and how instantly work went from being in the workplace to being remote. I didn't see it coming that the metaverse would all of a sudden this year be doing $60 billion in business revenue and expected by city to go to 13 trillion by 2030. I didn't see it coming that large language models and AI would all of a sudden be able to detect cancer from x-rays, and we'd be using it within the medical field. And I sure didn't see it coming that the Kansas City Chiefs would have such an impact this past year and that Taylor Swift would contribute $300 million to their revenue. Did not see that coming. And so if you've been saying that more or you've been thinking that more lately, there's a good reason. There's the World Economic Uncertainty Index that's out there. And what they do is they mine economist reports from all the different countries for keywords around uncertainty. The higher the number, the higher the degree of uncertainty. And what this shows is that over the past 30 years, there's been a continual trend upward around uncertainty in the globe. This isn't just even a pandemic issue. This has been going on for a while. We know that things continue to become more and more uncertain in the world. Price Waterhouse Cooper did a study, and they surveyed over 4,500 different CEOs and asked them some questions. And what they found is that 45% indicated that they don't believe that they are economically going to be economically viable in 10 years if they don't make significant changes to the direction of their business. If they stay on this current path, they won't be in business within 10 years. 45%. 75% of those surveyed from 135 different multinational companies, executives, they found that of that, 75% of executives say that we are not prepared for the pace of change. We are not ready as an organization, 75%. I don't know about you, but that should be a wake up call for us as leaders of the how do we need to shift, not only to survive and thrive, but to innovate and change and be successful. How do we do that? Amid all of this, Edelman does a study of trust across the globe. There's an Edelman Trust Barometer, and if you're interested, it's some great data. What we know is that less than a third of the world is willing to live near, work with, or help somebody that they disagree with on something substantial. If I disagree with you on something that's important to me, I'm less likely to want to work with you or even help you. That's substantial, right? A lot of challenges within the workplace, and that's the workforce coming in. Another red flag is around engagement. We know that 5 in 10 employees, according to Gallup and their global studies, are doing the minimum to get by. It's called quiet quitting. So at your table, raise your hand. How many of you are doing the minimum to get by? It was a trick test. Okay, you passed. You all passed. But 5 in 10 of your workforce is showing up. So 3 in 10 are actually engaged. Why that's important is we know engagement impacts the bottom line. Not only, and if you've looked at Gallup, they've done studies that engagement tracks to cortisol levels in your body. Cortisol levels are a stress hormone. Stress hormones over long periods of time cause heart attack and other issues in your life. So it impacts you on a personal level. only 3 in 10 are engaged. 7 in 10 are accumulating this stress hormone in their body by going to work. We also know that 2 in 10 rate their mental health as fair to poor. 2 in 10 in our tables here would say, my mental health is poor. This is the workforce coming into your places of business amid this growing uncertainty in the world. So we know that change is accelerating, and it's being kind of attributed to the agricultural industrial revolution. They're calling it a fourth industrial revolution, this new change. And what it's doing is it's putting additional stress on leaders, the need to have stronger business relationships, the need to connect with people at a greater level. This is the challenge that we're facing. So I want to shift the conversation and say, so what about leadership? What about leadership? Why do we hire leaders? Why do we hire leaders? I want you to think about that. I want to make a premise that we hire leaders to actually guide organizations through times such as this. That it's the leader's role to actually step up and help make sense of the world and move the organization forward. It's the leader's role to do that. But we should be wondering, what is my role? Why am I here? Why am I a leader? And then how am I going to need to shift to lead amid the uncertainty in the world and to lead among the realities of the workforce? You're facing challenges on a societal level. You're facing challenges on an industrial level. You're facing challenges on economic competition levels. It's all of these competing forces. So how do we need to change? How do you need to change? What do you need to do different? I think it's insanity doing the same thing and expecting different results, right? If we continue to show up the same way, is that going to prepare us for the future? Our CEOs are saying, no, we need to change. 45% may not even be economically viable if we don't change. It's needed now. Now is a time. In my doctoral research, I looked into just the aspects of what really drives. I've got really interested in bad habits. Like, why do all these bad habits exist in the workplace? What's going on with that? And habits are really important because they contribute to the actual mental health of the employee. They contribute to the outcomes of relationships. They contribute to the outcomes in your organizations. They're the fundamental building block of like how things get done. And I want to propose that it's not the things, the data that's on your table or the metrics that you're getting from your teams. That's not the biggest threat to your business. The biggest threat to your business are your habits, the things that you do that fall into routine patterns of practice without even stopping to think, the things that we just subtly do. I call them accidental habits, and there's an assessment in the on the bookmark on your tables that you can take to help identify these. Because I call them accidental because I don't believe leaders set out to do bad. I believe that they're trying to do good. And I don't think it's a matter of will. I don't think you just need to try harder. In 2024, you just need to try harder. I don't think that's it. I think that there's something that needs to be done different, right? There's these new habits that we need to look at. Well, in my doctoral research, I have a doctorate in strategic leadership. And so I wanted to, again, try to lean into a big problem, which I see as bad habits in the workplace contributing to some of these data points that I shared with you. How can I be a part of something bigger? So I wanted to understand what's going on. I went out and studied and researched these bad habits. I interviewed a lot of people. I looked at peer-reviewed evidence of what does it say that what are the bad habits in the workplace. And what I found is there's over 70 common bad habits in the workplace. This is a mind map I actually started for my my doctoral research, and I just wanted to start through all these interviews and start to see connections. And now I'm not going to talk about all 70 in the next 15 minutes or whatever. That's not possible, but we're not going to do that. But if you do see something up there that you're interested in, you want to talk to me about, like, I would love to catch you afterwards and hear more about it. And I'm always interested in what's new. But I flipped it. I wanted to say, what are the life-changing leadership habits that could really turn things around? What are the proven principles? Unfortunately, there's too many smoke and mirrors in the field of leadership. I believe there's a lot of people with good intentions that are trying to They say, well, this is what works. You just need to do this because they base it on their experience. And that's valid, but that doesn't mean that it's proven. And leaders are running at the pace of 8 on a treadmill every day, trying to get work done. The last thing they need to do is actually invest into something that's not proven, something that won't work, something that won't contribute to actual success and outcomes. So in my book, I poured into the research. Again, I'm a scientist, right? So I wanted to say, what does the evidence say actually contributes to outcomes that are positive? Not only to elevating the leader, but people, profit, and purpose. What really elevates those? And what I found is there's these 10 habits, and I call them life-changing leadership habits, because when I wrote the book, I had my editor said, life-changing leadership habits, that's a big promise. You know, in a book, it's important that your title, you can actually deliver on it. Otherwise, people go, that doesn't make sense. So they're like, that's a big promise. And I said, yeah, it is. And I've got evidence to prove these habits will have a life-changing impact, not only on your physical health, not only on your family and their relationships, not only on your teams, but our communities and the world. I believe that, again, leadership habits are life-changing. So these are the 10 that are proven. There are more that are proven, but these 10 correlate back to those 70 bad habits. They are the ones that check the box on the majority of these issues that we're seeing in the workplace. So on the handout, if you want, on the back of the handout, there's a list of the 10 habits with what I call the ultralight description of what these habits are. So if you want the Cliff Notes version of my book, this is a very, very condensed version. It doesn't give you all the benefits, but it gives you some of the direction of where I'm heading with these. And some of them are controversial, and I put them in there for fun. If you've seen in there that you disagree with, I'd love to talk to you about it because there's a reason why they're there, and I'd love to talk about the evidence that supports it. But I'm going to focus in on a few of those. You know, leading through uncertainty, it really requires us to hone in and think about things that matter most. And I don't know about you, but I've lived my life always looking for that one thing. You know, what's the one thing I have to do? I feel like there's so many expectations placed on me that it's hard to keep track of them all. But I just try to make it real simple and say, well, what's the one thing I need to do? Normally, if you ever meet with me in a meeting, I end it by going, okay, what's the next action? What's the one thing, right? Because I just want to try to boil it down. So I want to ask you, you know, which of the life-changing leadership habits, you've got the 10 there, which do you think is the most important for leading during uncertainty? So just take a look at it, kind of answer it to yourself. All right. And there's it's a good list. There's a lot there. There's 10 of them. That was another comment I got in writing the book. My dissertation chair was like, why don't we make it 5? And I'm like, well, that doesn't cover enough. I really think we need to hit 10. So there's 10 listed there. And you could probably make an argument. You're all right, by the way. You could probably make an argument around any one of those. But for you, the most important is the one that you need. And that's different for all of us. We're all different leaders. We don't all show up the same way in the workplace. We don't all interact with people the same way. But what you need to know is become aware of where your opportunities are. That QR code and the one also on the bookmark links to just a quick survey that'll help you get a feel for how am I doing in each of these 10 habits? How am I showing up? And let you kind of narrow it down. But there are a few that are more important than others, again, when we look at those things that influence during uncertainty. We could call out loving followers. That's demonstrated in the material, the evidence. There's also focusing on strengths. And there's also looking at being trustworthy and thinking strategically. Those are the 4 that really hone down around uncertainty. I'm going to dig into 2 of those today and really get into being trustworthy and strengths focus. What does this mean? What we know as uncertainty increases in the workplace, employees look to leaders that are trustworthy. And you gain trustworthiness by being consistent, exceptionally, as exceptional as the uncertainty is, they need leaders that are exceptionally trustworthy. They need leaders that can show up consistently in the trenches. You know, those people that you know how they're going to behave. Think about a leader in your past that has that trustworthiness. I know as I was just preparing for today's talk and thinking about it, I immediately come to a leader that I had, and we led through some very difficult uncertainty within a hospital group. And with that, I remember thinking, I don't know what's going to happen, but I know that leader's going to show up for me no matter what. I know they were going to do that. That trustworthiness allows me to not focus on the uncertainty and the chaos, but to lean into the work that needs to be done and stay focused. As leaders have that trustworthiness in the workplace, people keep showing up and keep performing. But you don't gain that trustworthiness in during these times of inflections by saying things like, I get concerned when I hear leaders try to allay fears by saying, "Oh, don't worry, you're never going to lose your job," or "Things are going to get better in 6 months," or what fill in the blank, right? They're trying to calm the fears, but they're making these predictions that they can't guarantee. It's out of their control. The economy is going to pick up next month. Yeah, I'd like to see anyone control that, right? That's how do you know? And so, but leaders are trying to do that, but that's not how you build trustworthiness. So I want you to reflect on what do you need to do to build trustworthiness? What is it at your level that you could show up consistently in the trenches for your team and build that? There's addition to that, there's credibility, there's reliability, and transparency that correlate to building trustworthiness. How credible you are. And as leaders, sometimes we come in and we lead organization executives that we haven't done the work that's being done. So, how do we build trustworthiness when we haven't done it? How do we do that? You don't have to do every job, but how do you do that? How can you build it? You need to think about that. Reliability. Is your word reliable? Can people depend on you when you make a commitment? And then transparency. Am I being vulnerable with people in the workplace? Brene Brown has like, some great evidence out there around vulnerability and the importance of that. But we need to be honest with people. But that doesn't mean trying to say things again that we can't guarantee. We know these are levers that drive trustworthiness. And I would say no one of us is completely trustworthy and no one of us is completely untrustworthy, okay? But there's somewhere in that middle that you fall. And I know that leading during uncertainty is going to be better for your team and your organization when you're consistent and predictable and you show up that way. So it's important to focus on building trust now, today, with your teams. That'll have an impact on your ability to lead, okay? So this is just a quote from Stephen Covey. I always like to pull in different thought leaders as well. Without trust, we do not truly collaborate. We merely coordinate at best. We cooperate. It's the trust that transforms a group of people into a team. Another one I've heard is, trust is the currency at which business is done. As an organizational consultant, I can tell you it's my trustworthiness that determines whether or not I'm going to continue to have business or get repeat business. Trustworthiness, right? The second one I want to talk on is focusing on strengths. And this is not being Pollyanna about the situation, but words shape worlds. What you say, how you think about change impacts your world and it impacts it for others. So, how you show up, how are you thinking about these challenges? I coach some executives, and I have an executive that they actually love when there's uncertainty in the market. They look to double down. They view it as an opportunity. They say, you know what? This is great. This is a chance for me to do something different that no one else is. Others say buy, hold, I say buy. They lean into it and they grow and they use this as an advantage. When you look at business, it really comes down to execution and innovation. I think we can break it into those two. At least let me use that framework. Execution and innovation. Execution is about getting work done, strategic thinking, strategic plans, being able to gain efficiency in the business, being able to deliver. Okay, that's execution. And that's based on certainty, knowing what the market's going to be, knowing where things are headed. It's all about the certainty. But then there's innovation. And to grow our business, and again, 45% of executive CEOs are saying, I've got to change. Innovation is about uncertainty. It's about, I don't know if this will work or not. I don't know if this will take off or not. And so when we think about the opportunities and we frame the uncertainty as a growing opportunity for our organization, how might that change my mental approach? I would say your mindset is causative. What you think about the opportunity impacts how you behave. How you behave impacts how you build relationships, impacts your organizational results. Mindset is causative, how you think about it. So the strengths thinking mindset is that of a growth mindset, that I believe there's opportunity to be had. I believe that there's a structure around this. I believe we need to innovate and to grow. And also underpinning this strengths thinking is a reward and recognition process, a way of bringing out the best in individuals. Instead of looking at performance managing of people and saying, how do we correct what's wrong? How do we actually reward and incentivize what's right? How do I know what are the behaviors? And I want you to think about this one. This is a money maker for you. What are the behaviors that contribute to profit in your business? What behaviors drive profit? They need to be clear, they need to be measured, and you need to incent and reward those. You need to be looking for them. If you say, well, I give people a paycheck, that's the reward, that's actually a hygiene factor. That's actually expected. Okay, they're coming to work with that contract. This is about how do you pull out the best. You can't bring out the best in people if you don't know what does it. And you need to know, and it's okay if right now you go, I'm not certain what actually are the behaviors that drive profitability in my business. But you need to find them. You need to identify them, and then you need to be looking for when they're done right and rewarding and incentivizing people. This is that strengths mindset. It's looking at change as a positive, flipping it upside down and thinking deficit oriented. I look at it and say, how do I actually do this and see it as a bringing out the best? Great leaders look at their organizations and they understand the strengths of the organization and their team, and they start to prepare for the future so they can leverage their strengths. Peter Drucker said, the ageless essence of leadership is to create alignment of strengths in ways that make a system's weaknesses irrelevant. Edward Deming, the guru in lean and continuous improvement, said, a good person in a bad system, the system wins every time. You've got to look at how you design and how you structure organizations from a strengths perspective. So what are you doing to take on a view uncertainty as opportunity? How can you convey that to your team? How can you build on reward and recognition in your organization for profitable behaviors? Don't hear me. Don't go out and tell everyone that you see, hey, thanks for being here. Great job. Because not everybody is contributing to your business. In fact, 5 and 10 might be doing the minimum to get by. And if you're telling them all the same thing, you're just now rewarding and incentivizing that mediocrity. You need to reward and incentivize what brings out the best in people. So I don't know about you, but I've started the year feeling like, hey, I'm going to do this and build these life-changing habits. And then at the end of the year, not ended the way that I planned. And again, I said it earlier that insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. You need to expect challenges in trying to do these life-changing habits. If they were easy to be done, you'd be doing them already. You would naturally be pulled into the way of doing them. These run a little counter to your business. The world is constantly becoming more chaotic. It's actually the second law of thermodynamics. I'm a biology guy. Anybody a biology major? No one. This is a comment at a business meeting. So, but the second law of thermodynamics says all things are heading to randomness. Let me make it simple. If you took a watch and threw it up in the air and all of its parts, it wouldn't land as a watch, right? It would land in a bunch of little pieces and parts. And what we know is that we're being pulled in this continual heading toward randomness. Things are not, it's your business right now. If you're not working on improving them, they're not getting better. You have to work. You have to do something to drive that. And so as you think about your habits, you need to, maybe through this conversation already, you've identified, hey, this is what I need to do when I get back to the office. Others of you may be going, I need some more input around these things. You talked about these things, strength thinking and trustworthiness, but I'm not sure where to begin. I can tell you that in my book, I go a little deeper on those and actually provide some tools and techniques around how you can live these out in daily life and some questions to reflect on. But then I would say some of you too might fall in the category, I'm not sure I have the time or energy to get into this, and I could use the easy button. I love that little Staples easy button, hit the easy button. I would be glad to take a call from you and try to help you hit the easy button and get you a plan to make the most traction around leading through uncertainty. So I have covered a lot of ground quickly, and I want to wrap up with talking just real quickly about, Jeffrey asked me to share a little bit about how does being a Christian drive my business and what is the impact on it? And I can tell you that in my lifetime, it used to be that we would say, you look to science, and science is the fact. It was the truth. We could all rely on science. If science said this was truth. Then today, I think we're in this time frame where everybody's what everybody believes is truth. There is an ideology of moral relativism. This idea that everyone's idea is important and of equal value and the same, and that everyone has truth. This is my truth, and this is your truth, and I have to accept it. Well, as a leader, that is dangerous and that is difficult because as leaders, when there's uncertainty in your business, you're not going to make decisions as quickly as you can when you have certainty. When I have certainty about what to do, I can make a decision. But as a leader, what about when you get an activist group complaining about the chickens and how you're processing chickens in your plants, and they're upset about that? How do you the moral side of that? What is the certainty? What is the moral truth? And I want to tell you that I believe that there's an answer today, and it's better than it ever has been. There's a need for a Christian worldview that looks at God as the creator and that nothing exists outside of God. When I have that belief, I can have certainty in what are the moral truths, and I can decide then how to respond based on those truths in the moment. AI is amplifying this moral relativism. It's speeding up the uncertainty, and it's really more important now than ever that we have leaders that are not just interested in improving efficiency, gaining profit, but are actually looked at how do we make a change, a positive change in the world? How do I help others? How can I bring them along? So I grew up a pastor's kid. We moved around a ton. I was kind of co-opted into my faith at a young age. It wasn't until I got to college that I really tested boundaries and challenged what I thought was right or wrong. And it was at that point that I actually accepted Christ as my own. And I really started to lean into what is it that God wants for me in my life. When I formed my business, I actually formed it because of what I believe God was asking me to do. I heard a quote from D.L. Moody. It said, "My greatest fear in life is not failing. It's succeeding at something that doesn't matter." And I'm a Gen Xer, and I'm always kind of questioning what is life about. And that really set me back. And I started going down that road. And that led me to take a step of faith. And I can tell you, in my business and in my life, where I've taken the biggest steps of faith, God has rewarded me the most. And I believe that that is the truth. And I don't know all the answers. I don't have all the answers for your questions, but I do know a God that does. And I believe that you can know them as well. And I want to end with that and just say thank you for the opportunity to be with you today.